June 14, 1944, off Charan-Kanoa Beach, Saipan. The sea was a clear blue under the blazing sun, while Japanese mortars thudded from the shore. A wooden LCPR skidded to a halt at the reef. 24 men leapt into the water, not wearing armor or carrying rifles, just swim trunks, masks, fins, and knives. They were Underwater Demolition Team 5, UDT-5. Amidst the shell fire, Lieutenant Commander Draper Kaufman stood on a small float, directing his men as they fanned out like a school of fish. Each diver carried a weighted line, measuring depth, marking every yard of sand and coral. Others hauled blocks of TNT and primacord, diving to lash explosives onto wooden stakes, mines, and steel obstacles planted by the Japanese. Mortar rounds splashed around them, geysers of spray leaping skyward. Yet the swimmers surfaced one after another, holding up their slates with soundings and notes. By dusk, channels had been mapped and buoys anchored, carving safe lanes through the reef for the next day, when U.S. Marines would storm ashore. On the beaches, Japanese defenders were stunned. The enemy had dared to swim under their guns in broad daylight and turn a reef of death into a highway of invasion. What made the underwater demolition teams unique was not firepower or numbers. It was their ability to turn the most dangerous zone into an advantage. Their mission sounded simple: reconnoiter, demolish, and mark beach approaches. But carrying it out was extraordinary. Where regular engineers cleared mines on shore, UDT began in the lethal zone itself: surf, reef, and shallow seabed, where Japanese had planted stakes, mines, and steel barriers. Teams split into groups. One carried lead lines and slates, carefully recording depth, slope, and bottom type. Another swam with TNT or tetral charges, diving to lash explosives to wooden posts, bamboo stakes, and hidden mines. Once finished, they dropped buoys to mark cleared lanes for incoming LVTs and LCVPs. The most striking detail: they did all this virtually bare, just swim trunks, masks, and fins. No armor, no heavy weapons. That stripped-down gear let them swim fast, dive deep, and maneuver freely under fire. It was minimalism, discipline, and sheer courage rolled into one. For Japanese defenders, the shock wasn't just in the explosions ripping obstacles apart. It was seeing enemies dare to swim under their guns, charting every yard of water, and within hours, transform a reef of death into a highway for Marines. November 1943, Tarawa delivered a bloody lesson. Hundreds of U.S. Marines drowned or were cut down on the reef as landing craft stranded offshore and men were forced to wade hundreds of yards under fire. It proved one truth: no amphibious assault could succeed without precise knowledge of depths, terrain, and obstacles at the water's edge. After Tarawa, Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner, commander of Pacific Amphibious Forces, issued an urgent directive: create special teams trained to reconnoiter and demolish underwater obstacles before H-hour. Thus, the underwater demolition teams were born. Part engineers, part divers, part commandos. When Saipan became the target of Operation Forager in June 1944, the challenge was stark. The main landing beaches at Charan-Kanoa were guarded not by gentle sand, but by a broad coral reef, shallow flats, wooden stakes, mines, and steel barricades emplaced by the Japanese. Behind them, mortars and machine guns were zeroed in, waiting to turn the surf zone into a killing ground. Without hydrographic data and cleared channels, a repeat of Tarawa was certain. landing craft stranded, Marines dying in the surf, the invasion stalled. That made the UDT not just a new experiment, but the critical key to opening the way for more than 67,000 American troops to set foot on Saipan. To clear Saipan's deadly surf zone, the UDTs had no armored vehicles or heavy gear, only simple, effective tools. They rode LCPRs or rubber boats launched from fast transport APDs. From there, they swam in wearing only swim trunks, masks, and fins. Their kit looked primitive. Lead lines for measuring depths and slopes, waterproof slates for notes, marker buoys to indicate cleared lanes. For obstacles, they carried TNT or tetral blocks, lashed together with primacord detonation cord. Each charge, just a few pounds, was tied at the base of stakes, bamboo, or mines. When triggered, the blasts sent towering plumes skyward, shredding barriers and opening passages for landing craft. The crucial difference: in the Pacific, UDTs swam hundreds of yards under direct fire, working across reefs and shallow flats. In Europe, the Naval Combat Demolition Units, NCDUs, at Normandy also cleared obstacles, but mostly on sandy beaches with partial cover. At Saipan, Tinian, and Guam, UDTs acted as the fleet's living charts, mapping the seafloor and blasting gates into fortified reefs. It was the marriage of minimalism, mobility, and precision demolition, a combination Japan had no defense against. A handful of swimmers turned reefs of death into runways for tens of thousands of Marines. Afternoon, June 14, 1944. The waters off Charan-Kanoa were calm, but from the shore came the flashes of Japanese mortars. From their wooden boats, UDT-5 and UDT-7 plunged into the sea. They swam in line abreast, each man spaced a few yards apart, forming a living net sweeping across the reef. At the center, Lieutenant Commander Draper Kaufman floated on a small raft, binoculars in hand, barking orders above the blasts. Mortars whistled down, columns of water erupted, some just yards away. One boat was hit and shattered, several sailors wounded, but the formation held. Beneath the surface, UDT men dragged weighted lines, recording depths onto waterproof slates. Others dove with TNT charges, lashing them to bamboo stakes and steel barriers. When they surfaced, they raised their slates high, while small buoys bobbed into place, marking safe channels. All data was relayed back to Kaufman before nightfall. That evening, a complete hydrographic chart was delivered to command, giving the Marines exact routes through the reef. Kaufman would later receive the Navy Cross, not just for leadership, but for leading his men in daylight reconnaissance under direct fire, a daring act never attempted before. A Japanese officer admitted afterward, "We never believed the enemy would dare swim under our guns, but they did. And they opened the way into Saipan." Dawn, June 15, 1944. Off Saipan, the U.S. fleet roared to life, hundreds of naval guns pounding the beaches of Charan-Kanoa. As the barrage lifted, waves of LVTs and LCVPs bobbed forward toward shore. But unlike Tarawa months earlier, this time they had invisible highways. Along the reef, white and yellow buoys, anchored the previous day by UDT-5 and UDT-7, marked safe lanes. Waves of marine-loaded LVTs followed in column, crossing the reef exactly where surveys said they could. No mass strandings, no hundreds of men drowning under fire. Behind them, engineers used the same buoy lanes to funnel in ammunition, 75mm guns, and vehicles. Post-battle reports noted that thanks to UDT reconnaissance and demolition, the first wave casualty rate at Saipan was far lower than Tarawa, where nearly 40% of losses had come in the surf. Once Charan-Kanoa was secured, Marines pushed inland into a brutal 3-week battle. But the strategic milestone was already set. Saipan became the springboard for B-29 Superfortresses striking Tokyo, placing Japan itself within direct reach. For those who saw it that morning, success was not just about naval guns or amphibious tanks. It began with the UDT swimmers, half naked, daring to clear a path under the enemy's guns. The victory at Saipan was more than just a successful landing. It was a turning point. From this island, B-29 Superfortresses could at last strike Tokyo directly, placing Japan under the shadow of strategic bombing. Many historians call Saipan the breaking point of the Japanese Empire. Within that larger picture, the underwater demolition teams played a silent but pivotal role. After Tarawa's disaster, UDTs were the U.S. Navy's answer. Turn the surf zone and coral reef, once a graveyard for Marines, into safe highways for tens of thousands of troops. Their success at Saipan proved that victory is not only about guns and tanks, but about technical preparation and the courage of men who worked unseen. The significance went far beyond World War II. Small, agile teams, lightly equipped, operating underwater to clear the way. These were the seeds of the modern Navy SEALs. From Saipan, Guam, and Iwo Jima to Vietnam and modern conflicts, the philosophy endures. Modern war requires silent hands to open the path before divisions and fleets can advance. The greater lesson, in the age of mass warfare, the decisive factor is sometimes not firepower, but the ability to create a way where none existed. At Saipan, the UDTs embodied that truth. On the beaches of Saipan, the guns eventually fell silent. But the memory of half-naked swimmers carrying explosives endures. They had no heavy weapons, no armor, only courage and skill to turn a killing ground into a pathway. They laid the foundation not only for victory at Saipan, but for a new chapter of naval special warfare. The legacy of the underwater demolition teams is not just the white buoys bobbing in 1944. It lives on in today's Navy SEALs. From the Pacific to the Middle East, their creed remains the same. Clear the obstacles, open the way, give others the chance to survive and win. If you want to uncover more of these invisible weapons, the people and tactics seldom told, yet which shifted the course of World War II, stay with us. This is Oblivion Archive, where history returns to life through numbers, memories, and untold stories.